Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and if you are new to our show, welcome. So glad that you're here. Make sure that you click the subscribe button wherever you are listening, or the plus button, whatever it is. That way you will never miss any episodes. We're all over Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, whatever podcast streaming platform you enjoy. So we have a ton of great guests and topics that we cover. And we're currently going through this room by room series. I figured it's the start of a new year. A lot of people want to start the new year off by setting some goals about organization in their home. And what better place to, for them to come is to listen to our show and say, I'm going to tackle some of these tough areas. But we wanted to look at this not just from the tactical, spaces. Yes, if you've listened, we've done episodes on closets and kitchens and all that stuff. But we also want to look at some of the things that are a little bit more out of the box. Like, how do you organize differently if you're living in a small space? Maybe you don't have a guest room. Maybe you don't have a basement or a garage or an attic or to store all of these things. So, how do you make the most out of your space? Maybe your kids don't have a dedicated playroom and it doubles as their bedroom or a living room or whatever. So I have a perfect guest, and joining me is one of our SBO partners, Dani Sticka. And Dani is the founder of Imperfectly Tidy, based in Portland, Oregon. And she also has a podcast out that just dropped. We're going to talk about it. Her new podcast, also called Imperfectly Tidy, which we'll link up to. And when I approached Dani about coming on the show to do an episode for this series, she said, I would love to talk about small space organizing because she herself lives in an 1,100 square foot home with her family. And, depending on kind of where you live, that may not seem tiny house size, but comparatively to whatever the average, and I don't even know, I should look up this stat, what the average home size is. But most of the people that I know that I deal with, their homes are somewhere around 2,500 to anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 square feet. And so by all that, calculations, she's definitely on the smaller side of things. And how does she have a home office? How does she organize her kitchen? How does she deal with, toys and all of the things, small closets? So I want to bring her out. So without further ado, help me welcome my friend, Dani Sticka, to the show.
Hi, Lori.
How are you? Let me just switch my gallery view so you could be side by side with me. So thank you. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because I think it's one that, again, doesn't get enough attention focused in on it. I think we talk about, when you have these, and even when you go on Instagram or Pinterest and you see these beautiful images of these huge walk-in closets and these walk-in pantries, and they're beautifully curated. And you're like, I don't even have a pantry. Like, my first house didn't even have a pantry. So I love the fact that we're actually going to be talking about people that don't necessarily have the luxury of a lot of space.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, tell our listeners a little bit about you.
So I'm Dani Sticka and I own Imperfectly Tidy. I live outside of Portland, in a town called Sherwood, Oregon. We have the Robin Hood Festival because of Sherwood Forest, and it's all very Friar Tuck and
oh my gosh.
Yes, this time of year, my daughter says it almost feels like a Hallmark movie because it just becomes very quaint and lovely. So we've lived in Sherwood in our home for 17 years. this was our starter home and it was just my husband and I, but we ended up making it our own and we just really love it here. And so we've stayed. And I have twin daughters. They're 14 years old. And we have a pug. She's 13 years old and we're just.
Oh my gosh, I have a 13-year-old puggle. So I'm like,
yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, hanging on strong.
We're doing what we can every day.
Yes, aging dogs. Oh my goodness. So I think your story is not unlike a lot of people out there where they say, I think I'm going to be in this house for a few years and then we're going to move. And then before you know it, 10 years, 15 years, 17 years pass by and here you are. And I kind of love it. Like we've been in our house for Zoe was just before her second birthday. So, I mean, it's been over 20 years. And like to think about that is crazy. Like I would never, if you would have told me when I bought my house that we would be in this house for 20 plus years, I would have said, no way. We'll be here 5 years and then we'll be on to the next chapter of our lives. And it wasn't even like to get a bigger house. It would just be like, you're going to be in a different place. And fast forward, here we are. And so talk to us a little bit about what made you kind of decide, or maybe it wasn't a conscious decision, but like, the house, you weren't outgrowing it, I guess is what made you decide to stay?
We decided to stay. We did shop around a little bit when the girls were born, because we thought we wanted something a little bit bigger. And so we went and we would look, and we just didn't like anything as much as we liked our current home. I was just trying to find things that these other homes had that my home already had. And I had gotten so comfortable in the house. I moved a lot when I was a kid. We never stayed anywhere for more than a year. And so at this point of the girls being born, I had an opportunity to make our house my home. And then now it was where we brought my daughters home. And I just became, and I still am very attached to this house. And so we finally decided, you know what, let's just do a few things to make it even more of our own. And we decided to stay when the girls were probably about a year old.
Yeah, I love that. So just walk us through I know I mentioned that the house is just a little over 1,100 square feet, but kind of give us the nuts and bolts of it. Like how many bedrooms, so we can have a visual of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a traditional 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch. It has just one great room when you first walk in. So, it's more of a good room. It's not that big, but so you walk in, there's you can see basically everything almost as soon as you walk in. But what I really love is we have a hallway, and I love a hallway, and the hallway takes you to all the bedrooms and the bathroom, and then, to the laundry room, the laundry hall, it takes you to the garage. And I like the flow of it a lot. And so when I walk in, I always tell people, I'm like, well, you've seen half the house already. And then I can take them through, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
How many bathrooms do you guys have?
We have 2.
Okay. Did you always have 2? Did you guys do any renovations, like in terms of?
It's always been 2.
Okay.
And
you said a 3-2. You said that.
Yeah.
I even wrote it down. I wrote it down. Gosh.
But it feels like we only have 1 bathroom because my daughters, now they're teenagers, prefer to use my bathroom because I have all the stuff in there. And so it's funny, we're still fighting over the bathroom. And I'm like, guys, we have 2 bathrooms.
I have 2 almost grown girls, one that's graduated from college and one that's in college. And to this day, they still use our shower and they have their own bathroom. And I'm like, guys, they'll come home from college or they'll come and they love my shower. And we've updated both bathrooms. My master bathroom's really nice. Theirs is nice, but it's whatever. But they're like, no, we like showering in your, and Josh is like, you guys have your own bathroom, but I think it's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but yes, they are
teenage daughters. I don't know.
Exactly.
It's pretty funny. And I don't mind too much because it's really only 1 bathroom I'm deep cleaning very often because the other one just doesn't get touched that much.
So again, I know I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but I'm just curious for myself. So obviously you and your husband have kind of your master bedroom. And then because your girls are twins, did they share a room? And then you have a kind of guest room office, or do each of the girls have room, like their own rooms? I'm just wondering how you have utilized your space.
They shared a room up until they were 12 years old.
Oh,
and
wow.
So they shared a room for the first 12 years of life. And right before they, or right on their 12th birthday, we put them into their own rooms. So for the first 12 years, we had we called it a bonus room. It was a bedroom, but my husband had his desk in there. We had a couple of recliners and an extra TV. And so we just sort of used it as a extra hangout space.
Yeah, because again, and there's, depending on the type of home that you live in, a lot of times people have a formal living room and a great room or a family room or whatever. And so you had this one great room. So if you wanted to have like two different, activities or TVs, or somebody's doing this, you didn't really have that kind of den space.
Right.
So just utilizing it for that.
That's what we did. And then now that the girls are in their own rooms, we don't have that room anymore. And so my husband has converted the garage, like we insulated it. So it's a lot more climate controlled now. And so we can utilize the garage. We have a TV out there. He watches football out there.
Oh my gosh. Is it like the King of Queens? Is he like Doug and the King of Queens? Watch.
A little bit, but we're still able to get both cars in there because that's always my rule is we have a 2-car garage. We need to have 2 cars in there, especially when we're going to have 2 more drivers here pretty soon. So there's
Now that brings me to another question. And so without getting down like a whole garage rabbit hole, because that's going to be, that's a whole other episode that we have. Talk about the storage, right? So, and we're talking about I want to talk about kind of your kitchen. Like I'm thinking about kitchens, closets, like in this small space. So the girls have their own room. You have your own room. Right now you have anybody that's watching us on YouTube, you have like a podcasting closet that you've converted to like a little home office, which I love. But obviously storage has got to be an issue for you.
Yes.
So you have a garage. What about, I don't know, do they have basements in Portland? Is that something, or do you have attics?
The older homes do. They're not very common because we do get a lot of rain.
Okay. All right. So where do you store your stuff? Like if it's seasonal stuff, or is that all go in the garage, or do you have a shed? Walk us through that?
Our garage it's a 2-car garage. And so we utilize the 2 sides of the garage with shelving. So we're able to store, I'm thinking like my husband's really big into electronics. He's a tech guy. So he's got his shelf of like all of his tech stuff. I have my shelf of our board games and things like that. Just like the backup things that you don't keep in your home. And then we actually converted the top of our garage where there was a peak. We converted it into an attic. We like cut out a hole and we put in a captain's ladder, and my husband plywood everything. And so now that's where we're able to keep our camping and our seasonal decorations and things like that.
Awesome. I love that. Now, what about your kitchen? So again, 1,100 square feet, not overly big, not tiny house, but again, you're a family of 4 and you got some bedrooms and, a living room. Your kitchen cannot be that huge.
It's not tiny. I like my kitchen a lot. It works really well. It has a pantry, but it's like you can open the door and like there's the pantry or not. We used to joke it's a walk-in pantry because you could like walk in and shut the door. My husband would be like, look, it is a walk-in pantry. That'll never fly.
Well, that's more than mine. Mine you can't. Mine is like a tiny, tiny little pantry.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh. Super tiny. You cannot at all. And I was just happy to have it because our first house that we bought didn't have a pantry at all. So it was really just you. So I was just grateful to have a dedicated closet, even if it was really, really small, to have that. So how do you, because again, and you had twins, so you had a lot of stuff at the same time. How did you maximize this space?
I learned quickly. I didn't need to have two of everything, luckily. I learned what I wanted two of and what I didn't need to have two of. I'm trying to think, is I utilize a lot of things that are multi-purpose. And so when I bought furniture when they were little, I wanted it to serve dual purpose. So, they have the ottomans that you can open and you can put things in it. So that was like the toy box because we didn't have a dedicated playroom. It was the living room. And so that's where the toys went. And that was the max amount of toys that we could have because whatever that ottoman fit, that was their toys. I'm trying to think, when they were little, we utilized their bedroom the most as far as like where their books went and things like that. I never missed not having a playroom because my friends had playrooms and they were constantly cleaning them up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I'm always curious to talk because Josh grew up in an apartment. He grew up in Manhattan, and so they didn't have luxury of space. And it's a spacious apartment, but there was 5 of them in a 3-bedroom apartment. There's obviously no garage. There's no attic, no basement. So literally everything that they had to fit in that.
Yeah.
In that space. And I've talked to my mother-in-law like a lot about how did you navigate that with kids? And it was just kind of like something that you did, right? And it was just, you knew that you had to make decisions. And in some ways, I think it makes it easier because you can't really procrastinate the way somebody in a larger home could say, I'm going to just throw it in the guest room or in the basement or in the spare closet or whatever, shut the door, not think about it. You were forced to make a decision on the spot, or you would be surrounded by stuff.
Yeah. So we went through clothing regularly. We went through toys regularly. And then we just really limited what came into the house because we didn't know off the top of our head where it was going to go. There really wasn't anywhere for it to go. We've maximized our space at this point, and you can just only have so many things. And so it really slows down that accumulation for sure.
Was there ever anything, and we're going to talk about, I know you mentioned the storage ottomans. We're going to talk about like some other specific products or things that people can do, tips, hacks, whatever you want to call them, for people that might be living in a small space and trying to maximize that. Were there any things that you really felt like you missed? And if so, like what were they, or how did you troubleshoot? Maybe a better question is, how did you troubleshoot like things that you didn't have? How did you make that work for you?
I still wish we had a guest room because we have guests. People come and stay with us all the time, our family members. I always laugh. I'm like, we have the smallest house out of everybody, but everybody always comes here and stays with us, which I love. I love having my family here. And so I always wish we had a guest room. And so I look forward to the day we will have a guest room because I love the whole idea of getting the room ready and flowers and just making them comfortable. And so what we have done is, depending on who's coming to stay with us, if it's one of our parents, they get our room and I do it up like it's a guest room. And we have a sofa bed. And so we've utilized that. Both girls, my one daughter has a day bed that has a trundle. And so that's always super helpful. And then my other daughter has it's not a futon, but it's a couch that folds down into a bed. And so that works really well for like sleepovers and things like that. So that is definitely the one thing I wish we had, was a guest room, but we've made it work.
Yeah. It's funny. We don't have a huge house. I mean, it's a little more than double the size of yours. So, but it's not huge. And we had a 4-bedroom house, and we converted, when I started working from home years ago, we converted our guest room into my home office because we don't have a dedicated home office. And we just always shuffled the kids around. Like when we would have people come, because, Josh's family would come from New York, and they would come for days. You would think they lived on the other side of the country, but it's fine. We love them. And I love entertaining, and I love having people, but it was always that kind of moving thing because you have to use your space. You have to maximize your space for what your lifestyle is like. And
Yes.
I just couldn't afford to give up that real estate for even though I love the whole concept
Yes.
of being able to have that.
Yeah.
What about the girls growing up? Again, you think about in the 50s, I don't remember the statistics, but I read something about like the average home size in the 50s was probably close to what your home is, somewhere in the like 1,100 to 1,500 square feet. And that's what people raise their families in. And then I don't know if it was the 70s or 80s, like at what point that shifted, but I think the average home size now is probably like around 2,600, but don't quote me on that. I could be making that up. And then again, there's tons of people with like McMansions and whatnot that are tons and tons,
Yeah.
So I'm wondering kind of, again, when your kids were growing up, I don't know if their friends had houses similar sizes or if you guys were the small kids on the block. I don't know. Was there anything that your kids felt like they were lacking?
No, they've because we've asked them, and now they've gotten a little bit older, and the housing market has been changing, and there's been a lot of houses that have come up for sale in our town that we have always kind of liked. And we're like, what do you guys think about, if we were to, relocate? And they're like, well, I mean, if you wanted to, but we're perfectly happy here. I always laugh. When they were little, they would have friends come over, and sometimes their friends would say, "Where are your stairs?"
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
That was so cute.
If I were to buy another house, right, I would want a ranch. I would want to go. Go smaller.
I'm a ranch girl all the way.
God, I feel like it's got to be so easy to clean.
It is very quick to clean. It's very quick to clean, especially because the girls really handle their own rooms at this point. And so I'm not even cleaning the full 1,100 square feet, really.
Right.
So yeah, I always think about that when I vacuum. I'm like, how do people do this even more?
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a good time. Like, I kind of like, I don't want to necessarily call it like a pro con list, but like, let's talk about like what are some of the advantages? Obviously you have less to clean, you have less to store. So again, for people that are listening out there, like there's a lot of advantages. Again, it's one of those glass half full, glass half empty kind of things. Yeah. So you could be like, I only live in this, but here are the perks of living in a small space. So maybe you could just walk through some of the things that you feel are a benefit to living in a smaller space.
The biggest benefit has been a small space has required our family to just spend more time together. There's nowhere else to go to watch TV really, unless you come into our living room. We always eat together at our family table because where else are you going to go? So that has been the biggest perk. And I grew up that way too. I grew up in apartments. And so we just hung out together because where are you going to go?
I love that. I think that's great. And we're fortunate that our kids still choose to hang out. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they could have gone up and done their homework in their rooms and done stuff. They didn't have TVs in their bedrooms, but nowadays your phone is, you have a device. But when they were small, they didn't, but they still chose to hang out. And I love that.
Yeah, I like it too. So that's been the biggest perk. And then, it's less to clean. It's less to maintain. We got a new roof a few years ago. And because there's just not that much roof, it wasn't as expensive as what a lot of our neighbors were having to pay at the time. Mm-hmm. So just heating it and cooling it, doing we put new floors in, but there's only so much square footage of new floors that you're putting in.
Totally. Yes.
So that part has been really nice. I really like that part of it. And also it's cozy and I like the coziness of it.
I agree.
Those are definitely the biggest perks. And it definitely just keeps us from having less to manage, less to buy. There's not a lot of room to fill.
Right. I love it. I'm taking all these notes because and I love the fact that you talked about the family time first because really most people, if you're talking about your home, we want our homes to be these places where we have connection and where we have community, whether it's with the people in our house or we're inviting people over.
Mhm.
And those are the things that are most important. And when you are, I don't want to say forced, but like when that just becomes your norm,
Right.
you have a different level of like intimacy with those people than if
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I'm going to the playroom, I'm going over here, I'm going here,
Yeah.
and you're kind of all spread out. So
Yeah. I mean, I do everything in the front part of our house, really. Where the TV is, it's where I read. Where I'm sitting right now, the living room's just right there. And so I'm just in the middle of everything all the time. And so I'm just in the middle of everything my girls are doing all the time, which I love.
yeah.
And they seem to be where I am, which is funny. I mean, it's not a very big house, but just like with using my bathroom, like there's just this sense of closeness that I'm glad has come out of it.
Yeah, I love it. Now let's talk about, I don't want to say the flip side. I don't want to necessarily focus in on negatives, but there are, I'm sure, things that you need to do to get a little creative to maximize the space. Maybe things that you need to say, okay, we don't have a big walk-in closet or we don't have a lot of extra stuff. So, that you cited one thing like doubling an ottoman with storage for, toys or blankets or whatever, which is great. Maybe you could just walk through some practical, like tactical things that you've done or that you also, and that you recommend to people that might be listening that go, yeah, I'm in a similar boat and I just feel like I can't keep it organized.
Yes. Anything that you can buy that's going to double as storage. So, definitely like the ottoman type thing. We have a counter height bar in our kitchen that you can sit at. And so instead of buying cloth bar stools, they're just the hardtop kind and they're flat. And so those can be used as end tables. When we have guests over, I can just pull them up so people have somewhere to put their drink, and it doesn't look like a bar stool at that point. It just looks like a cute little end table. I usually actually right here as an extra writing area when I'm working on things and I need more desk space, I can pop that over. I always recommend a kitchen table that has a butterfly leaf, because then you don't have to store the leaves. They just kind of live underneath the table when it's not extended.
And just tell our listeners that might not know what that is. Can you just explain what a butterfly leaf is?
So what it is it's you pull the table apart and the leaves have a mechanism and they just sort of pop up, and then you can push it back together so it's that seamless. So then you're able to extend your table when you do have guests without having to figure out then where you're going to store these big, clunky
it's
leaves.
Basically attached, people. It's like
They're
basically
attached.
it's
Yeah.
basically
They live
attached.
underneath.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I think those are genius. When I first learned about those years ago, I was like, why would you have any other type of leaf table? It's so smart and simple. And so I always recommend those, because most of the time it's just the four of us on a regular basis. But anytime we have, guests or anything, we want to have more, make the table as big as we can. And then in the bedrooms, we don't do like traditional dressers. We do the IKEA four cubes.
Okay.
And so then we do that in the center, and then we have the two bars coming off the sides so that they can have maximized space for their clothes. And then they use those center cubes as their dresser, essentially. And then like their excess winter clothes just go on that top bit. So all of their stuff that is theirs is in their room. And that makes it just simple for when they need anything and when we're switching over for seasons and stuff along those lines.
What about bathroom storage? Because I'm thinking in a small space, especially, and again, I know that the girls are using your stuff, but there's products and things. And if they're, how do you maximize space for, and I don't know, linen closets, backstock, toiletry stuff, shampoo, conditioner, all the toothpaste, all the things that we need.
We have in the girls' bathroom, but we only have a certain amount of towels. I want to say we have 2 towels per person, which it's very rare that all towels are dirty at the same time. So we're only storing 8 towels, which is not hard to do because you don't store them all. We have a couple of them hanging up because, the bars or whatever. And so the linen, we don't have a linen closet. We just have the under the cabinet. So that's where the extra towels go. I only keep 1 extra of things as far as like shampoo, conditioner.
So you're not Costco shopping. You're not doing big bulk shopping.
No, like I don't buy the Costco toilet paper because I don't have anywhere to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just drive me bananas. And I'm okay with paying a little bit, more for toilet paper to save my sanity.
I love that you said that because when Josh and I when we first got married, we were like living in New York and had a tiny little house. And I was like, well, first of all, there was just 2 of us, so I didn't need to. But people would be like, oh, why don't you go to Costco and you can stock up? And I was like, because I have nowhere to store this stuff. And so it for me, and they're like, yeah, but it's cheaper. But I'm like, I understand, but it doesn't, I have nowhere, I don't want to be looking at clutter. We're talking 25 years ago, people
right.
And it's worth it. But I think a lot of times people don't think about it from that perspective. They're just like, oh, I could go here and buy it in bulk so I can go in fewer times. And listen, I appreciate the fact that you're trying to simplify your trips and all of that and save money. I don't want people to waste money. But if your space can't support that, it's not worth it.
That's how I feel. Because it's not that much of a savings. There's other ways that we can maybe do some strategic budgeting to make up for it. So I just, I usually just buy 12 rolls of toilet paper at a time, split them up between the 2 bathrooms. We have 1 extra of everything. And so when that, back stock gets grabbed, I just add it to the list. It's just building habits mainly. They know to let me know, hey, I just grabbed the shampoo. And I'm like, okay, I'll add that to the list. And so it's just sort of becoming, just kind of slowing down on the amount of stuff that you think that you need to keep on hand. I live in an area where it takes me 2 minutes to get to any store. So I just let the store hold on to it for me until I need it.
I love it. Let the store be your storage unit,
Yeah.
And also that's probably an advantage. I know a lot of my clients, they'll buy so much stuff and then they forget that they bought it because it's, they have multiple places to store it and they're like, oh, now I'm, I just bought it again, or I didn't realize I had so much. Exactly.
Yeah. And so that part has definitely made things smoother. I do the under the cabinet, the pull out drawers, they're too high.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really useful for our medicine and our back stock of the bathroom products. And under the cabinet storage, I love the double ups. So, and they make them for all different size cabinets, which is really nice. And they just go around your pipe.
Yeah. And I mean, nowadays there's so many different ones. And what's great is there's ones that you can screw in if you wanted an actual pull out. But if you don't want to screw something in, or maybe you live in an apartment and you can't, or you're renting, you could buy just these standalones. So these storage things, you can take them with you and you don't have to worry about it, because I think that's a challenge for a lot of people is, how can I maximize my space? I don't own this property. I can't put in a custom closet. I can't do these things. But that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily, just live with the existing space the way it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do, especially now. We have the world is our oyster as far as organizing products go now, which is really helpful.
So is there anything else? Because obviously you do this for a living. You're an organizer. This is something that comes very naturally to you. But for our listeners that are out there that are like, I'm struggling to try to keep my space. There's just so much that's coming in. I can't stay ahead of it. And I just don't have any place to kind of for lack of a better word, hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips or advice for them of things that they can do?
Well, I always tell people this is not my natural state. I had to learn all of this. So I was not that kid who was like clean and tidy. I mean, my mom is like, are you going to let me be on your podcast so I can tell everybody what a messy person you used to be up until just recently? And I'm like, no, Mom. I had to retrain my brain. I was the Costco toilet paper shopper and, we need to have 14 shaving creams and all of this stuff. And I had to completely retrain my brain because I was like, this isn't working in our small home. It's making me crazy. All I'm doing is managing our stuff and I don't want to do that anymore. And so I just, I always try and let people know, like, if I'm able to relearn and incorporate new habits and ways of doing things, 100% you can too. I'm just realizing I don't think I answered your question.
No, you did, but I mean, you did. It's fine, but I think again, you did in the sense that it starts with habits and it starts with that intentionality, and it's about building that muscle.
Yeah.
So, starting to identify, and sometimes for me, and this goes for anybody, whether you live in a small space or not, for me, it's oftentimes of starting with what do I want and why do I want that, right? Like people can obviously look at a beautiful image on social media and say, oh my gosh, I would love that. I could never keep it. But realistically, looking at what you're working with in your life, in the season of life that you're in and the space that you have, what do I want out of this? And and why? And then almost retrofit it, work backwards. Okay. So if I want this, what do I have to do? If I want less clutter, maybe Costco shopping isn't the best thing for me. And this is nothing against Costco guys or BJ's or Sam's or any of those big box clubs. But, thinking about the different things that you can do and then start practicing building that habit muscle of saying, okay, we're going to be really intentional. Like you had to come in there and say, I'm going to be really intentional about not just buying things because I like them and knowing, I have a home for them. And because you had to, it made it a little easier in the sense that you're like, you couldn't just shove it, but it's still a choice. It's still a decision that you had to make.
Yeah. Yes. I definitely had to, I just sort of paused certain activities that I was doing. So I was like, why don't we just take a break from going to Costco for a few months and try it this other way and see how that goes and how it feels. And no, it's never a permanent decision. You can always go back to what you were doing. But if it's not working and you'd like to try something new, just give it a shot and see how you and your family feel about it.
I love that. Let's just talk for a few minutes while we have a few minutes to talk about your new podcast.
I'm excited about my new podcast.
Yeah. So it's doing great. It launched at the beginning of the year, which is awesome because that's when people more than ever are like, okay, this is going to be our year. We're going to do it this year. So great timing. Tell us the name, what it's about. And obviously we'll link to it in our show notes so that people can just click on over and subscribe to your show. But give us the rundown.
So it's Imperfectly Tidy with Dani Sticka, and Imperfectly Tidy is just that. We're working on embracing the imperfections in our home, realizing that nobody has it just right. Nobody's home is perfect. Even organizers, we all are living life and things get messy and things get cluttered up. Like you talk about situational clutter. I mean, we can all relate to being in those situations. So it's a lot of those conversations. And then it's a lot of really practical how-tos. I have a couple people who have come on and talked about some digital decluttering, which is a big one. And it's not I'm learning right alongside those conversations, which is really fun for me. I love bringing those people on. And I have some small business owners who have come on and talked about how they're able to sort of embrace imperfections in their business and then how it's then overflowing into their homes, being able to embrace things not being done perfectly and just kind of a permission slip to be a little bit more human.
I love it. I love it. And so we'll make sure that we link up to it. Imperfectly Tidy with Dani Sticka. Go subscribe, listen, and check her out. Aside from the podcast, where else can people connect up with you? Give us all the things.
So my website, imperfectlytidy.com. I'm on Instagram, Imperfectly Tidy.
Notice the consistent branding, people. Unlike me, who has a business with one name and a podcast with another. Not the smartest thing. But Dani, when she was telling me she was starting this podcast, I was like, yeah, be consistent. Keep it simple so people know.
It's
for my mistakes.
Secret sauce. And then I'm on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, you can find me, Dani Sticka will be the best way to find me. So
awesome. Yeah, and again, we'll have all things Dani Sticka, all things Imperfectly Tidy. And of course, you can find her on our website, on our SBO Partner Find an Organizer page. So if you don't know, we have this community of professional organizers all over the globe because we have listeners all over the globe. And so these are all independent owners of their own professional organizing businesses that are there to help serve you in person. So if you listen to the show and you're like, I need some extra one-on-one help and I live in wherever, click on our page and see if we have an organizer there. And if we don't, you can always shoot us a message. And we've got a ton of different people that we know all over the place. But yes, Dani is one of our organizers in Portland and she's awesome. So definitely check her out. All right, we're going to take one quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to just wrap things up with our hot mess minute. So sit tight. All right, Dani, this has been so much fun. And all I want to do is come to your house in Portland and see.
I would love for you to come.
Oh my gosh. I may just have to make a business trip out there. So we've got a couple organizers.
And Kim.
I know we have another Portland organizer as well. And so I think I may just have to make a point to go out there. So we'll have to talk about that. I think we'll try to make that happen in 2023.
Oh, cool.
All right. So, but for those of you who don't, we ask all of our guests 3 wrap-up questions. One of them is about their favorite book or a book that's been really, really impactful. And we love this question because it helps give me and our other listeners recommendations for books to go check out. And we have a Goodreads list that we've created. So all of our guests for 2022, we have a whole list with tons of different, books and ideas for you to different genres. And we're starting our 2023 list. So you're up, Dani. Let us know what's a book. And if you have 2, you could share that as well that you really, really love or recommend to other people.
I love Soulful Simplicity by Courtney Carver.
She was on my show.
I know. Courtney Carver has been hugely inspirational to me to just be more intentional and slow things down. Her book, I've read it a few times actually, and it's really the #1 book I recommend to everybody all the time.
I have it in my bookshelf right behind me.
Oh, do you? Yeah, it's beautifully written. And she's just a beautiful person through and through. And I just, Courtney Carver is wonderful if you're looking for some good.
Yeah. And, I'll link to the episode that she was on.
Oh,
it was
good.
like one of my earlier episodes, like back in the day. I don't know how good the interview was. Like, but I love Courtney's story. Just for anybody that is not familiar with her, she was diagnosed with MS and actually started her journey into simplicity and I guess minimalism because she had to simplify her life because of all of the external things. So whether it was her clothes and her diet, and she created this 333 habit challenge, which some of you may have heard of, where it's like, we're going to streamline in these different categories down to 33 things for 30 days, like whatever. She talks all about it. And it's just become really popular, and something that she did out of necessity really just became the catalyst for her journey to wellness. And it's beautiful. So I love that you said that book. And I will make sure to definitely link to it and the episode. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then our last 2 questions that we ask every guest is in this particular season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
I feel the most organized definitely in my home. I feel like we've got things pretty dialed in. My family has gotten into some great habits and routines, and we are just sort of doing pretty good. It doesn't feel like it's all on me right now. So that's been pretty nice. Yeah, they've definitely all sort of caught on. And I'm a hot mess. Probably right now, I would have to say we are a budgeting family, but the last couple of months we have definitely fallen off of it.
Dude, I feel you.
We would like to my husband and I both would like to sit down and kind of clean that back up a little bit. So I'm feeling a little bit of a hot mess right there.
Well, at the time that we're recording this, it's right before Christmas, people. So that is, again, I'm not using it as an excuse, but just from a context standpoint, I think that's the time where a lot of people start to like hemorrhage money for things.
Everything for school seems to be coming up right now. And we're like, okay.
I know. Well, hopefully one of the goals, because we are dropping this in early 2023, that we'll be able to kind of get right back on track. So awesome.
Yes.
Well, Dani, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm so excited. We've been talking about this for several months that we've got to get you on. I'm so happy that we were able to make it happen and that everything is going so great with your podcast. And I can't wait to be a guest on it. I invited myself on. I'm like, I totally want to be a guest on your show. So we'll make sure that we link up to that. But if this is your first time tuning into our show, welcome. Again, we really appreciate each and every one of you. Click the subscribe button wherever you're listening. If you feel so inclined to leave us a review, we love that too. It gives us a great social cred for other people who are looking for podcasts to know that, hey, this is something that I might like. So definitely do that. And if nothing else, just share it with a friend. Like tell people, hey, I heard this great show or this great episode, and I think you might get some nuggets of wisdom. So again, word of mouth, referrals, that's what we're all about. So thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you. Until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.